Okay, thank you very much. Daman, in I think March, no, in May, Daman called me up to say we're having the conference again. Can we do a topic? I say, as usual, every year, okay, Daman, you give me the title of the topic and I'll figure out what to do. He says, let's talk about managing through tough times. I can guarantee you when we talked about this in May, we did not know what tough meant. Because when Daman called me, the pound was at 5.5 and we thought that was bad. Today it is 6 point. Well, hopefully come down a bit, 6.5, hopefully. Okay. At the time Daman called me, oil price was 50 ringgit per barrel. And the Secretary General of the Finance Ministry says, it is okay because oil price is going to go up and our deficit will come down. Never did he expect that oil price will go down to 40, 30, and now people like Shell are predicting possibly 20. Okay, so it's a bit ironic, isn't it? When oil price goes up, we say, hey, why can't we have cheaper oil? Now we get cheaper oil, people say, oh no, can oil price please go back upwards? So things are getting very, very tough. And what I want to do today is to explore a bit about what is happening. So the presentation I have is, we're going to look briefly at economic cycles, just to understand why it happens. And then we'll look at a bit of data, which has to do with Malaysia. By the way, I had to sanitize a lot of my slides, because now, got SOSMA Act, got this act, got that act, very dangerous. So we had to. And then we'll take from the data and look at the firm level, at the company level, and then we'll go down to people. And I want to try and do this in about 20-25 minutes, because what is really important when we go through times like this is to take the questions that you have. Because the questions that you have would be very specific. I can only speak on the generalities. Yeah, so that's my wish. So let's start with the big picture on economic cycles, right? So they are divine. All right? And if you read the book of Genesis, anybody who can tell me, in the book of Genesis, book 41, verses 17 to 40, what's the story in there? Does anybody know? Where's Victoria? Let's ask her. Okay. That story in the book of Genesis, which is in the Old Testament, is the exact same story in the Quran, in chapter 12. And in this story, Pharaoh has a dream. And the Pharaoh dreams of 7 fat cows. And then 7 very skinny cows come up and they eat the fat cows. And then he has another dream. And in this dream, he dreams of 7, stalks of corn or something, really healthy. And then there were 7 very thin ones that devours the fat ones. And he asked for this interpretation of the dream. And they go and find the Prophet Joseph, who was in jail then, to come and give the interpretation. And the interpretation of the dream says that first you're going to have 7 good years, and that's going to be followed by 7 difficult years. And this cycle repeats and repeats. Right? So then they say, what do we do about it? And God's response to this, in both the books, is to find somebody who is trustworthy to look after the affairs of the country. That's God's response to it. Okay? So this is what economic cycles are all about. They're not man-made, they actually are divine. Why do we have cycles? Okay? Why do we have cycles? Why does it happen? Good, bad, or easy, tough, easy times, tough times. Joseph Schumpeter, the Austrian economist, he says, economic downturns are a good cold shower for the economic system. It's the way the world presses the reset button. So that inefficient firms get removed from the economy. And what survive are the strong and healthy firms. And as this goes on, new inefficiencies come in, they get moved out, and they get replaced. And hopefully over time, then things actually get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's the economic reason for having economic cycles. But the people who live through economic cycles really go through a lot of pain. Yeah. So anyone here followed what happened in Greece over the last 12 months, 24 months? Can you imagine going to the ATM and you put your card in and say, sorry, you can't take out your own money? That's what happened in Greece. They went to the machine and said, sorry, 50 drachmas or 50 euros or something, 50 euros a day, your own money, you can't take it out. Same thing happened in Argentina. They went to the banks and the bank says, from today onwards, no more money. And yet in your account, you actually have got, it's your own money. Okay, so that's the worst of the cycles. There's a guy who's called Stuart Brand. He's one of the founders of the great thinkers of Silicon Valley in the 1960s, before Silicon Valley was what it is today. And he used to write a magazine called the Whole Earth Catalog. And recently he wrote a book, and he says, the Earth has got an enormous way of rebalancing itself. So if you think like we've got haze right now, right, that's bad. But we've got all of this haze, and then it brings in a lot of rain. And the rain fills up the dams. Because same time last year, if you think of Hari Raya last year we didn't have water. Yes or not? Hari Raya this year we had too much water. Yeah? So this is how the world rebalances itself through these cycles. But also you get great innovation. In all of these crises, great innovation comes out. For example, economic theory around the New Deal that President Roosevelt did in America after the Great Depression. Nokia. Remember Nokia, that very famous phone? Yeah, which we all forgot now. Yeah? Nokia was born out of the Russian collapse because Finland traded, 20% of Finland's business was in Russia. When the Soviet collapsed, Finland went into tailspin. They decided they wanted to focus all of the economy on R&D, and from there Nokia was born with a few other companies. Most recently, Airbnb. You know Airbnb? House sharing? That was born out of the American crisis, when people had homes, but no money to pay mortgages. So instead of people going to hotels, they say, why don't we come and use your home? Yeah? So it's got a lot of good in these tough times. To understand tough times, we need to understand structure and impact. So this is the work of Cesar Hidalgo and Nassim Nicholas Taleb being put together into one slide. So what Cesar Hidalgo says is, it's an interaction between the complexity of what you're doing and the interconnectedness. So the basic way I can explain this is the space shuttle is a very complex machine, right? But if the space shuttle blows up, it doesn't disrupt anything because it on its own is not interconnected to anything else. Banks are incredibly complex businesses. If one bank blows up, or not blows up, crashes, right? Actually, the entire global financial system can come down. Why? Because it is hugely interconnected. At the other end, you got things which are very, very localized and simple. So if you think of the Asian financial crisis, we had all of these problems. Brunei didn't have a lot of problems. Anyone from Brunei here? Do you notice Brunei actually didn't have a problem when we had the crisis, 97, 98, 2007, 2008? Because why? It's actually a very simple economy. It is not a very interconnected economy. Right? So what Cesar Hidalgo says on the blue is advanced economies are hugely interconnected and hugely complex. All right? Then you got the basic economies which are not very complex and not very interconnected. Nassim Nicholas Taleb says, when crisis happens, it hurts the people who are at the top end the most. Because of your complexity and because of your connectedness, your economy becomes very fragile. Right? So the oil price drops, got nothing to do with anybody else, other than the fact the Americans decided to produce more oil than they should, because of their shale oil production, one of it. And then China slows down a bit, and suddenly the whole world is in a tailspin. Okay? They estimated just losses on oil exploration right now has crossed $1 trillion. Okay? Because it's an industry that's incredibly complex as well as incredibly interconnected. So that's the idea behind there. So far, okay or not okay? Yes, no? All right. So that's the macro. Now we come to a bit lower down. We come to Malaysia and we look at the data for Malaysia. So what do we see here? This is Malaysia's GDP growth rate that we always hear now. It's a very popular thing. We're going to be a high income nation. Yahoo! Yeah? And that's actually how GDP has grown every year up to 2015, September 11th, which is the last data point. So we're now at about 326.93 billion US dollars of GDP. So I want you to just observe the trajectory of those graphs, and you'll observe that we have been growing at about 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. Now, for countries to grow, what happens is either they've got a lot of money, so they use their own money, or if they don't have a lot of money, they go and borrow. And in Malaysia's case, do we use our own money or do we borrow? Apa dia? Borrow. So the next slide shows Malaysian debt to GDP. And what do you see on the slide? I'm not making up these numbers. These are actually Bank Negara numbers. So 2008, 2009, we were running at a debt to GDP ratio of 40%. And then boom, in 1 year it jumps up to 52, 53. Now we cannot cross 55 because that needs an act of parliament. Okay, we've got a statutory limit at 55% that our debt to GDP cannot cross. Otherwise they've got to go to parliament for special permission. That's why there's so much effort to keep that number below 55. Yeah. So if the debt to GDP has gone up so much, that means the country is borrowing so much to pump in, what we should see is very high level of business confidence. Yes or not? Yes? No? Yes. Okay. So we look at the business confidence index. And this is what the business confidence index looks like for Malaysia. And what you will see, can't quite see the pointer. Note the trajectory that actually business confidence has been going down since about 2010, isn't it? Yes or no? Can you see that? It's actually been coming down, which is very, very surprising data. Yeah? Because we've not yet opened the Star or Berita Harian or Utusan that says business confidence is going down. What we read is everything is okay, harga minyak naik. Okay, harga minyak turun. Okay. But what is more worrisome is the consumer confidence index. This is a reflection of your confidence and my confidence to go and spend discretionary money. And when this number starts to go down, it means people stop spending because we are worried about the future. Okay. So far okay with the data? Right. So if you have got these conditions that are coming onto you, then what is it that you as a business or firm or organization need to do? So I assume some of you in here I know are owners of your companies. Some in here are senior people within your organizations, etc., etc. What do we have to do? Yeah? So what is the implication of external shocks and how do we go to the internal response? So if you read or you understand theory of the firm, I mean if you open the management books and all that, it sounds very complex. If you read, all the reports. But if you go back to business basics, actually a business has got only 3 things you need to manage. You manage capital, you manage technology. Technology means your processes, how you get things done, how your information flows, and you manage people. So the next time your boss says, you're so difficult management, and you say, no, boss, very easy, only 3 things. And I suspect you're only managing one of the 3 things. Okay? But when things are easy, any fool can make money. When things are easy, if the fool is not making money, the fool deserves to go out of business. Yes or not? Agree or not? Right? When things are tough, that's when it requires a lot of resolve. So when it comes to capital, there is actually one thing which you must do, which is the most important thing. You got to conserve your cash. Because the lifeline of you as a family as the business is really how much cash you have in your hand. 82% of all big businesses, we're talking about huge businesses, 82% all fail because it doesn't have enough cash. Small businesses, it's almost 95% of small business failures because not enough cash. Most entrepreneurs who go and start up their small restaurant, cafe, warung, whatever, most of them die in the first year because they run out of cash. So you got to really learn how to conserve cash. So my question to you is, do you actually know the cash position of your own company? Whoever you're working for, do you know how much cash they have? If don't know, better go and find out. Betul. Okay. And then you need to ask your CFO the second question. Are we generating cash or are we burning cash? If you are generating cash, that means you are making more cash. More cash is coming in than going out. If you are burning cash, that means less cash is coming in, more is going out. That one very, very difficult. Okay. And then how much debt is your company servicing? If the money you come in, 60, 70, 80, 90% is going to pay off your interest payments to the bank, sure in trouble. If 5, 10%, maybe not so bad. Makes sense or not? Simple, isn't it? Yeah, very simple, very basic. Yeah? Now, there are some companies in Malaysia, for example, that say it's okay, we got plenty of debts, but we also got plenty of assets. No problem. It's not how much assets you have. It's how much cash the assets are generating to be able to pay for the interest on the debts. Okay. So go back and find out. Do you remember a company called Dell? How many of you have used Dell's? A lot of people, right? What is Dell's biggest business? Where do they make their most money from? Sorry? Computer. Wrong. Good try. Dell makes money from the money you pay them because you pay up front, correct or not? They collect your money first. How long before they pay the vendors? Huh? I don't know, I'm sure there must be people. Daman kau dah orang Dell kat sini, from Penang. Huh? Not this year. Between 30, 60, 90 days. And all of that money, hundreds of millions and billions, sit in the bank earning interest. They make all, the reason they can sell you the cheap computer is because they already make money on your money. So prepaid is a very, very good business model because it brings in the cash up front. Okay. So the first one is conserve cash. Think of all the ways in your company you can plug the leaky bucket. There's a picture up there. Money leaking here, leaking there, leaking here. How you can stop the leaking? Second one, technology. What can you do to eliminate wastage in the business? And most companies, if you walk around, easily 20, 30% there is wastage going around. Easily. And if you can eliminate wastage, what happens to your cash? Improves or gets worse? Improves. So the 7 listed up there, that's all by Taiichi Ohno. Taiichi Ohno is father of the Toyota system. And initially he laid out the 5 principles and then he expanded it to 7 and now he's got 9. And he says you just go and focus on these things. So for example, inventory is bad. Pre-producing is bad because you make the stuff, it's waiting for customer. Money is tight in there. Inventory, money is tight. Right? Overproduction. All of these things. The final one, which is the most important one, especially for today, because the majority here are IR practitioners, has to do with people. And for people, this is my message to everyone in this room. Keep them employed. If times get bad, what do you do with people? Keep them? Keep them? So if we go back to 97, 98, before GLCs became famous, last time it was ULCs, not GLCs. You know, say ULC? GLC, do you know? Government Link Company. Before there was ULC, UMNO Link Company. Betul lah. Basically, Tun Mahathir issued instruction and says, thou shalt not lay off. And it was very interesting because at that time, Bank of Commerce was getting married to Bank Bumiputra. The merger, this is 15 years back, 20 years ago. And Mahathir said this in his infinite wisdom. He said, the dignity of the man is tied to his job and his ability to put food on the table. He told the companies to take the pain on the P&L, but hold man's dignity intact. This is why we did not go through what Indonesia went through. In Indonesia, people actually went hungry. And hungry people are angry people. Malaysians, we don't know what hunger is because we haven't had to go through it. Yes or no? Agree or not? We make a lot of noise about a lot of things, but the reality is we haven't had to go hungry. And let's hope we don't ever have to. So my assertion to everyone is, whatever happens, keep them employed. Job share, job split, 3/4 pay, whatever it is. Because that's where a person's dignity is tied to. Okay? Many options that you can look at. Many things you can do. And whatever bad crisis comes in, after that the good stuff will come back. For sure. How many of you all saw the advertisement in the Wall Street Journal that was run by the Indonesian Ministry of Trade? This is about a year ago. The advertisement said, and this was in not the Asian Wall Street Journal, this was in the Wall Street Journal, the main Wall Street Journal. It says, why invest in Malaysia just to get Indonesian labor? Just come directly to Indonesia. So we really need to rethink our labor strategy of what we do on relying in terms of foreign labor. Now, why you got to keep them employed? Here's the reality for Malaysia. Domestic consumption is 48% of GDP. So what happens is, once people start to lose employment, they start to lose income, income goes down, consumption goes down, production goes down, guess what happens next round? The producers who are producing less, employ less. It becomes a vicious cycle, a spiral down the dark hole. One of the biggest lessons of America in the 2008 crisis was the billions of dollars that they spent bailing out the banks. They said, you know what, we should have just given the people the money direct to the homeowners. That was the lesson from America. So they took all of this money, the government money, and they gave it to the banks. Guess what the banks did with the money? They took all of the money and invested in Asia. 20% of Americans' middle class became homeless. Can you imagine that? 20% of American middle class became homeless. What do you think that does to the dignity of the people? So America said, if it happens again, we'll take the money, we won't give it to the banks, we'll just give Mr. Homeowner, you owe the bank $500,000, federal government will underwrite the debt, you now owe us $500,000, stay in your house. Dignity is preserved. When the job market comes back, start paying us back. Okay? So what they are trying to do is, you got to try to break that vicious cycle. And the best way to break it is, keep people in employment no matter how hard it is. Daman, this is like not good for your business, right? I mean, what I'm telling them is like, yeah? Boleh. So we come to the last bit, we talk about people. All of us, staff in your organizations, we're human, right? Yes? and we're reading signs. Is tomorrow going to be better, or is tomorrow going to be worse? And we're trying to make decisions. But sometimes as managers, and I've done this many, many times, I think of my employees like robots, you know. Like they just programmed to do whatever they're supposed to do. And when they don't do it, I get very upset. Ask Daman, you see me upset many, many times. But actually no lah, employees are also humans. And what's happening is, in their mind, this is what we call the mental state, they have got experiences of the past, having worked with you, and based on those experiences of the past, they make assumptions about the future. Okay. And from here, you can get one of 4 states. The best end to have is a state where everybody is optimistic. Because when everybody is optimistic, easy not to do stuff. It's easy to get them moving, isn't it? Right? So that's what we want. If not optimistic, at least they are hopeful. Okay lah, there is a plan, I think it's going to work out. Boleh. If not hopeful, at least skeptical. I'm not sure lah. I always hear them, but I'm not sure. The worst place to be is if the people are cynical. What happens when the people are cynical? So they come and tell you, we have got a plan. What that goes through the cynical person's mind? I believe the plan, or I don't believe the plan. Before you finish talking, they have given 300 WhatsApp interpretations of what you're going to say already. Yes or not? Right? So the most difficult state to be in is when people have become cynical. And the leadership challenge at that point becomes really, really, really tiring and frustrating, because everything you say, no matter how truthful it is, will get interpreted in a different way. Because people have lost trust. And that's the trust deficit we talk about. Which is the most optimistic country in the world? Do you know? The youth in this country are the most optimistic in the world about their future. It doesn't start with M, by the way. China. That's why I say you cannot stop China, because the people in China are so optimistic about what's in store for them, correct or not? And when you're optimistic, you can do anything. One of the reasons Europeans are now starting to say we should take in the migrants is because they need that optimism. Because guess what migrants bring? Do migrants migrate to fail? No, isn't it? Migrants migrate to succeed. Now, there are a lot of countries we know skeptical, cynical. There's one country I know, everything that comes out in the press, people say, ini tak boleh percaya lah. Very difficult. Once the population have become cynical, it's very, very, very difficult. Because people have got a mind of their own. And it's no more about fact and reality. And if you read what's coming out in our press, I can tell you we as a nation have become very cynical. So, what do we do to try and move people towards hope and optimism? How do we get people up there? Yeah? That's what we want to know. How do we get people up there? Number one is, you must be honest with people. You got to give people a correct assessment of the situation. If all you do keep saying, that question I already answered last time, that question already answered last time, people are not going to believe you. You got to give people a very honest assessment of the situation. Number two, you got to create avenues for people to participate in the problems until it changes from it's a company problem, it's a management problem, to become it's our problem. For as long as the people say, that's a company problem, For as long as people say, that's management's problem, you haven't got it yet. So you got to create the conditions that people can get involved, where people are going to say, you know what, it's our problem. Once people start to say that, and you will hear it from your staff, from the organization, it's our problem, something changes. Then you can start to people to invite them for suggestions. Here's the problem, what are we going to do? What do you think we should do? Because there is a lovely saying that says people who are part of the solution, right, aren't going to be the problem. The difficulty is when you're in tough times and management is trying to solve the problems up there and people down here are wondering what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, what's happening. And in that what's happening, what's happening, what's happening, they are creating 1,000 different stories. My daughter, this morning sending her to school. Dad, are you sure school will open? His looks very bad. My daughter! Are you sure? Can you check or not? Can you call the school? 6:55 in the morning. Okay. And then only you take implementation to implement. So you can use these 4 steps and you can aggregate it and look at it at the context of Malaysia as a country. You can look at it at the context as Malaysia as an organization, as a business, as a family. These 4 work in all of those situations. Right? Okay, I've done my 30 minutes. So what I really want to do is to go to the Q&A and take any questions that you have, either with regards to what was presented or questions that you have which are specific to your organization that you want some views or opinions or ideas about. I open the floor to you now, please.
Yes, please raise your hand so that we can get the microphone over to you. My 2 colleagues at the back there is holding the microphone, so...
The first question gets 50 ringgit from Daman. Can we get a working mic? 1 second. See, normally they let me run down. This year they put chairs in front so I cannot go down anymore.
Thank you. Okay, hi. Just now you said that keep people employed. All right, I want to know how can we keep them employed if the company is doing bad? We have no choice to retrench them, you know, or close the department. What can we do?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. Your name, please. I didn't get your name.
Salome from Harvey Norman.
From?
Harvey Norman.
Harvey Norman. Hey, Salome from Harvey Norman. Any sales coming up soon? So that is a very, very good question, you know, but we're not making money. All right? When you have a consumer-driven economy like Malaysia now, 48%, 49%, right? And you say, I close this department, what we don't see is the contagious effect that it's going to have. So you close, he closed, she closed, they closed, they closed, they closed, and very soon, you know, 300,000 people don't have jobs. Those 300,000 people actually stop consuming or reduce their consumption tremendously. So if last time they would go to Harvey Norman to buy stuff, now they stop going to Harvey Norman. So now Harvey Norman has to close another department. Correct or not? Because people are not coming. And when they close the second department, now more people, even more people don't come, they got to close a whole shop. Of course, Daman, Tava all very happy lah, because business comes their way, right? But that's what happens. Right? So the question is, what can you do before you get to the point to say, I have got no more choice left? What can you do? And there are actually so many things that you can do. And these are the things that you need to start to do now, not when the crisis has hit. Because when the crisis has hit, it is already too late. So go back today, make a commitment. What can we do to start building our cash buffers in the company? What wastage can we eliminate? Right? If that happens, start to run scenarios. If this happens, what can we do short of laying off people? How can we do job sharing? How can we do, so many creative things that you can do. The easiest thing to do is just to say, lay them off. Because we forget the humanity part of it. And we forget it until we become the person who's going to get laid off. So Salome, have I answered your question? Yeah? Okay? Who would you like to ask the next question? Can you point to somebody in the audience and make them ask a question? Next question gets Harvey Norman voucher.
Hello. Okay. My name is Khairul Fitri from Fluor Asia. You make an interesting statement just now. Do it before the crisis hit. When do you think the crisis will hit?
Ini soalan yang agak rumit ni. Dalam jangkaan dan kiraan pihak kementerian, I'll tell you this much. Khairul, is it? I'll tell you this much. Everybody's predictions are going wrong. Nobody can understand what is actually happening. Okay? The movement of US dollar against oil price, the movement of oil price against gold, all the, what do you call this, the historical indicators where you see the correlations, all are going in directions that people actually cannot understand. Substitution. Glencore is one of the 10 biggest mining companies, actually one of the 10 biggest companies in the world or something like that by capitalization, almost going bankrupt in a matter of like less than 1 year. Okay, so everybody is having a very difficult time trying to say, is it going to happen, is it not going to happen, is it going to happen? This is what I can say about Malaysia. This is not the political speech, this is the real, this is just my feeling, all right? God has blessed us with enormous diversity. If you think about it, right? Palm oil is sold in US dollars or ringgits? US dollars. So we got one stream of income there that's going to come in terms of US dollars. Crude oil, US dollars or ringgits? US dollars, right? Rubber gloves. Ada anybody from rubber glove manufacturing? Condoms. You're laughing very loud. So do you know the answer? US dollars or ringgits? I know you buy in ringgits, but when they... So one of the things is, for whatever, if you just think about Malaysia, for whatever reason, we are just lucky. Every time a crisis has hit us somewhere, something else has come out to balance out. And I think our challenge as a nation is to be able to appreciate that we actually are that lucky, and how do we come together and keep this lucky streak going on. If you just think about it, just look at our history. Every time somebody said this is the end for Malaysia, we wake up again and it's a new story. Yes or not? Yeah. I remember in 1995, people wanting to buy a house in Taman Tun, a link house for $250,000. And they're saying this is the most expensive it's ever going to be. And then the crisis came, it dropped to $180,000. No, can go down some more. And now a link house in Taman Tun is 1 million ringgit. Can you imagine in Malaysia, link house 1 million ringgit? Impossible, isn't it? Right? But it's happening. So there's some strange stuff going on here which is working out good for us. Alhamdulillah, we say, Alhamdulillah. It's working out good for us. So when is it going to happen? I don't know. But I can tell you what to do before it happens. Those are the things which I said. So that when it happens, you're in a position where you got cash, you got weak competitors, you can go and do some acquisitions, you can invest in innovation, you can make technological leap, you can do all of those things. Okay? So where were you tadi, Khairul? I saw, where were you? Okay? Boleh. By the way, tuan-tuan and puan-puan, he has got an amazing business. You're the infrared ni kan? Yes. Talk to him at the break what his business does. Amazing business. Okay? Who else? Come from this side. Question? Yes, no, yes, no. 2 more Harvey Norman vouchers? No? Daman, can we wrap up if it's not? Yeah? All right, ladies and gentlemen, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was useful. Sorry, is there a question? Oh, okay.
I'm Raj from Harvey Norman.
Hey, Raj, how are you, man?
Since you've been speaking of Harvey Norman so much, I thought I'll give you a few comments. Now, I like the way you connect economics to the human resource or the industrial relation perspective. Now, I like to give a more optimistic, version of the economics. Now, no matter what we say, even World Bank estimates say our economy is going to grow at about 3% to 4%. Despite this mismanagement of resources that we have, despite the confidence crisis that we have, despite the debt to GDP ratio, although you say it's 55%, if you add the contingency liabilities, that means the debt guarantees given by the government to 1MDB and all the government-linked companies.
Hey, he said it. Your name again, sir?
Maybe, if you look at all these contingency liabilities, maybe our debt to GDP ratio might even hit 70 or 80%. But in spite of all this, I think the economic pie is going to increase. And I agree with you, we should not retrench. You're absolutely right, because termination of employment will lead to lesser consumption, and it sets off a very vicious cycle. And obviously, you're taking a stakeholder approach here because we owe something to society. Where shareholders will take a shareholder's perspective, they want to maximize their profits. But what I think we need here, companies, what I tell my company is, we are not looking at retrenchment at all because Harvey Norman is strong. Okay, and never in our policy, never in any country have we retrenched people, not even in Northern Ireland where we were doing badly. Now, what I think we need to have is confidence. And what I'm going to say is that this is the best time to pull away from your competitors. If the business is slow, we do more learning and development, we do more training, keep our employees. I agree with you, you're absolutely spot on there. And in fact, when everybody else is shortening on their marketing, we should be even more aggressive and take the market forward. And I think it's now up to the public, to ordinary people like us, to move the economy. That's all, that's my comment.
I've got an Indian economist friend, he's 85 years old, he lives in Delhi, and he says this, he says, here's the difference between Malaysia and India. And he says, you just don't know how blessed you all are as a country. He says, in India, they'd bid out a project for $1 billion, and they'll give the contractor 300 million to do it, which is why in India you see very bad infrastructure. In Malaysia, actually our infrastructure is very good, isn't it? Because here you bid out for $1 billion, mark it up to 2 billion, take the top 1 billion and still give the contractor 1 billion to finish the job. So at least you get good infrastructure. Last one. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, with that, thank you very much for having me here. All the best to everyone.